Chapter 12. In a darkness, like fur and far off, yet distinct, Barbie heard voices. One voice went with a fat pair of lips, and one with thin. The words were only sound. The sound drifted slowly, like creeping smoke. It went round in an echoing rotunda, like a phonograph record played at slow speed. Then it poured out as smoke pours through an opening. There was a muffled bang, and in a moment the voices began. This time she could hear the words. Too critical. I don't think she can make it. That was Thin Lips. Fat Lips said, take a ticket in tats if she does. Heart actions weakening. Barbie cried aloud, give me my baby. I want my baby. Your baby's all right, Fat Lips said. All right. Thin Lips said, what about relatives? Doesn't appear to have anybody, but we ought to make another check with the police and notify them. I must be dying, Barbie thought, but I can't die. What about my baby? It's a big world. Where will my baby go? What will happen to it? Who'll look after it? Don't let me die, she cried. I won't die. Now, Fat Lips said, you're not going to die. My baby. Your baby is well. Don't worry about your baby. I'm not frightened to die, Barbie thought. It's just that I'm afraid to leave my baby. That's what I'm fearful about, not death. I'd rather take my baby with me than leave her behind. And it's not true to say I've got nobody. I've got people everywhere. I could rattle off the names for a week. I've got Tussie and Twentyman at Sugarbag Flat. There's only one, but everyone sort of calls him Tussie and Twentyman. And anyway, if Twentyman stuck to me, so would Tussie, and Bowtie Dealey and Oodla Weira. What about him and his wife? He's almost my uncle. He's my godfather anyway. And the lovely Brusher. How about the lovely Brusher? How about all the others, Mickey Kerrigan and Clary Dick and Resurrection Jim, and Ethel Shelton, and Edna and old Rosy Face and Humpy Watts, the train drover at Port Pirie, and Jack Kippelaw, the one they call Fascinatin'. He was more than a friend. He loved me once. I've got a bent threepenny bit to prove it. How about all those people, just to name a few? You said I've got nobody. You ask them and see. If I die, they will take my baby and look after her, but not the same as I would. I said if I die, I will not die. 3 weeks later, they wheeled Barbie out on to the veranda for a little while each day. She lay still, gazing in a stony silence. 2 weeks later, they allowed her to see visitors, and the first of them was Billy Lomas. He brought fruit and sat on a white chair at the bedside. He was well dressed, better than she had ever seen him, and he looked well. You're going to make it, Barbie. Hell, you've got guts. Nobody gave you a chance. She made no response. He fidgeted awkwardly. He placed a hand on hers, but she eased hers away. What about letting bygones be bygones, Barbie? You get right and come out of this hospital, and let me take care of you. I'm in the money. Good job at the Scots Arms. I've been making the hay. Been salting it away, too. What do you say? She was looking at the ceiling as if he were not there. God, Barbie, you don't want to let it eat you up. You've got to look at it on the right side and the bright side. When you get clear of this dump, what are you going to do? You've got to get right again properly. You want someone to look after you. You need help, and I want to help you. Honest to God, I do. I don't want anybody's help, let alone yours, Barbie told him quietly. Hell, why be like that? Why hold grudges? I might have acted up a bit, but if you'd pitched in with me, well, he stopped himself. I mean, you've got nothing now, Barbie. You. She turned on him coldly. Don't you say that to me, she said. I've got more than you'll ever know how to have, and I've never seen the day yet when I took help from the likes of you. Strike me dead, anybody would think I was the lowest thing on two legs the way you talk. Offer help, a bit of kindness, and this is what I get. That's gratitude for you. I understand you, Barbie said. I don't wish you bad. I just don't want to know you. I made one mistake with you. I won't make another. That was final. He got up clumsily, attempting bravado under the scrutiny of the other patients on the veranda, and said with a smile for all to hear, "Okay, Barbie, so long and good luck." He felt that saved his humiliation. When Barbie woke from a doze the next day, Ethel Shelton was sitting beside the bed. Barbie was struck by the change in her, both inner and outer. She had put on weight. Health glowed in her cheeks. She looked prosperous. Silently, with a little smile, Barbie placed her hand over Ethel's and squeezed it. "You poor thing," Ethel said tenderly. "What you've been through, how terrible for you. It's a wonder you're sane." She glanced away. "Your poor husband, and your little baby, and everything. I suppose it's the will of God." "No," Barbie said, her eyes freezing. "It's me, my own terrible stupidity, leaving it so long. You couldn't have done anything, Barbie. Don't blame yourself. Nobody could have saved your baby. The doctor told me. And Joe had a diseased heart. It was likely to happen any time. It's just dreadful, that's all." Barbie said soberly in a whisper, Fancy telling Joe he had a bad ticker. He would have roared. Joe would have." She looked up. "Where are they, Ethel?" Ethel couldn't look at her. "In the town cemetery. I didn't even get time to know her that well, you know. My baby." She added calmly as a fact, "I'm sort of back where I started." Ethel moved closer. She said earnestly, "You're coming home with me, Barbie. Frank and I both want you to come. We owe you so much. We can never repay you." "How did you get here?" Barbie whispered. "Who told you?" "The police did. Just a day or so after it happened. I came straight away. They thought, but when it seemed you'd get right again, they told me to go and they'd send for me again when I could see you." "But the police, how did they know?" "You had my name and address on the back of your writing pad. That was all. And they just sent for me. You were good to come." "Barbie, they're going to let you leave soon, but you've got to have rest and quiet. You've got to build yourself up again. You can do that with us. I want you to come and let me look after you. Frank, too. You wouldn't know him now. And the old farm. It's a picture. And it's all thanks to you." Barbie shook her head. "I didn't do anything." "Oh, you did. Only for you. I don't know what would have happened. It's our turn to do something for you. I'm at the hotel, Barbie, close. I'll come and see you every day, and then I'll take you home." "No," Barbie said. "You don't owe me anything. Even if we didn't, I want you to come with me." Ethel looked distressed in her importunity. "Please don't think you'll be a burden, or that we can't afford." She opened her handbag on an impulse, and withdrew a roll of paper money tied with an elastic band, 5 10-pound notes. "See," she said brightly. "What's that?" Barbie said. "Don't you know the money you lent us?" Ethel said, half chidingly. "We've had it put aside for some months now, hoping we'd find track of you, so you can see we're not too badly off, are we?" Barbie was bewildered. "But Ethel, I didn't lend you any money. Are you just trying to be kind?" Ethel frowned. "The money you left at the hospital at Tambourine. I didn't leave any money there." "You didn't? Well, who did?" Ethel Shelton looked puzzled. Suddenly she smiled. "Now, Barbie, that won't do. We can spare it truly." "Honest, I didn't," Barbie said. Ethel realized she was telling the truth. She was baffled. She explained the circumstances. The 50 pounds in notes were in a brown paper envelope addressed to her and left at the hospital. There was no message. She had concluded that Barbie was the only person who could have left the money. She went to the Marquis of Lorne to thank Barbie, only to discover that she was gone. "You just went into thin air," she added softly. "I found out why, Barbie." "How long was I gone when you got the money?" 3 days, they told me." "Then surely," Barbie said, "you must have realized it wasn't me that sent it." "No, why?" Ethel said. "I didn't know whether you'd given it to someone or left it with someone. Who else was there to think of but you?" Barbie realized who had sent the money. She told Ethel. The woman gaped at her in surprise. "But why would he?" "I don't know, but it must have been him." "Well, that's astonishing. Anyway, it was a great help with the doctor's bills." Barbie said quietly. "Where is he now?" "We don't know," Ethel said, "but I'll certainly find out." "He's been gone from Tambourine for weeks," Frank heard. She put her hand on Barbie's and said in a low voice, "I believe he went on something dreadful after you left. Drunk for a week, in the lock-up too." She went on talking as long as Barbie seemed interested to listen. She said to her brother, Danny had been out of hospital for months and was back on the Opal Fields. He was as fit as a fiddle. She told of Resurrection Jim coming to Tambourine, and with a disciple, she said, a broken-down boxer of all people, a big hulk of a man with cauliflower ears and a battered face and thick in his speech. He said use and dim. Resurrection Jim had picked him up as a derelict, and nothing now would make him leave the master. People had already tagged him Hell and Damnation, which he didn't seem to mind, and Light of the World, which annoyed him considerably because he thought it disrespectful to the rightful owner of that title. Ethel stayed in Scott Town right up to the time Barbie was allowed to leave the hospital. She hoped to the last that she could prevail on the girl to come home with her, but Barbie's mind was made up, and Ethel resigned herself to the decision. "I've got to get over it by myself," Barbie told her. "But what'll you do?" Ethel said, deeply concerned. "I'll worry like mad about you." "I've got some money," Barbie said. "I know what I want to do. I want to be on my own for a while and think things out." "That's no good for you, Barbie." "It is for me," Barbie said. Ethel farewelled her tearfully. "Will you write to me, Barbie? Wherever you are, let me know and write to me." "Yes." "Oh, Barbie, you won't. I know you won't." "I never break a promise," Barbie said. "I'll write to you just as soon as I'm settled." Barbie sold up whatever she could of her household belongings, all the equipment, and left the shack as it was. She took the old radio that Joe bought her, and she kept the tent, their first home. She kept the remaining horse too, and bought a cheap buggy. She knew what she wanted to do and where she wanted to go. There was only one place, and that was moonlight. She went out of Scott Town on a Sunday, a day full of apricot sunlight, and quiet as a nesting bird, and she thought, the bones of a man that was Joe McCara, my great husband, and the bones of a child that was born under a tree in this land. I leave them behind. They are 2 parts of me buried in this town. In the greenness and coolness of moonlight on the banks of the trickling creek, she pitched the tent, and soon a hut walled with bags and flattened kerosene tins. She grew vegetables she wanted for nothing. What she got from the bush and the earth she cropped was her main living. Usually once a fortnight she went 15 miles into the little town of Daybreak for other stores. Here is the place that was more than a place to Barbie, a belonging. She lived for 6 months. At first it was peaceful, but in time the loneliness came. She walked in the bush. She sat in solitary session by the campfire. She lay on her bunk with her eyes open, and all the time she was thinking of getting well and starting out again, taking into herself all the essences of good from her past. What is a life after all, she thought, but a thing of light and shadow? You must have both to know each. There are sweet things to remember, and they stand up like mountain peaks. I had Joe for 16 months. It was into my life. This man came of all lives on the earth. It could have been that I never met him. I was lucky. It's not everyone has a little girl like Robbie either. This is the way I must think of it, the only worthwhile way. She could not look at the sky, a swarm of stars, without thinking of the days of her honeymoon. My husband Joe, he saw the sky as a far country of cities, towns and villages, of plains and paddocks, hills and deserts, roads and streams, billabongs and mountain tops. You could leave the great frosty city of Orion and all its shining suburbs, and take the track by orange-red Aldebaran to the Pleiades, a village in the desert, a huddle of fettlers' tents. When you came down to earth, the Pleiades could have been Andamuka in the back of beyond. My husband Joe did not know the names of all the stars and planets, and I told him Saturn, yellowy green as zinc flames, blazing red Betelgeuse, and blue-white regal like the heart of a blacksmith's fire, Sirius the same, diamond Canopus, and the icy brilliant Centauri, red Antares, and Jupiter, the great Jupiter, a silver Bathurst burr. And when I told him these names, and many others, my husband Joe said they sounded like the names of some opals and some gold mines, and even some pubs he knew. A poet must have thought of the lot, he said. And thinking of the stars, she thought of the song, and wondered how many daybreaks, how many sunsets, how many turns of the Milky Way, and how many settings of the cross before it all comes right for me. I feel I've lived for 90 years, but I'm only 25. I'm only 25, and I haven't done much, and I know so little. When it's all said and done, it was almost 3 years to the day since her father died, and she could quite objectively see how his death had started all this. It had broken the threads of her life. It had sent her out searching for a way on her own, on a mission to mend that disruption, to find the threads and weave them together again. It was as if God had said, so many hours, so many days, so many years before you close the gap, before you reach your home again, and shut the gate that you left open when you went. She thought that she might get a caravan and follow the roads, like Bowtie Deely of Udlawira. The roads went everywhere. She thought she might go back to the opal fields, making a living. One thing, whatever it was, she had to be with the things she had been with all her life. She might even go in for grapes yet, she thought, but that could wait a little longer now. When she went into daybreak, there was another letter for her from Ethel Shelton. They had been writing regularly. Barbie read it sitting in the sun. All the gossip was so much a blur. What stood out was a single paragraph. As I told you, we got the address from Mr. Tweedy at the hotel, and posted a letter and a check, but had no word whatever. Apparently the letter had been going the rounds and finally caught up with him. He acknowledged it from the Adelaide lockup. He didn't say what was the matter, but that's where he is. I thought I'd let you know. The letter had been posted 2 days before. Barbie went straight into the post office and scribbled a note on the back of a telegram form. It just told him she was sorry to hear about him. Was he all right, and was there anything she could do? She borrowed an envelope and sent the letter off. She went in 5 days later, but there was no mail for her. I could stay here, she thought. I could live here alone and be happy. I know those stars in the cross like I know the joints in this cabin. The seasons would be like old friends coming to the door, but what else? There is more in life for me, and I am ready to go and find it. The letter was there when she went in again. It was headed the pokey. Dear Barbie, you shouldn't give me shocks like that. It was like hearing from a ghost. I don't know what I'll turn out like when they give me my walking ticket. Tough about Joe. Ethel told me words don't mean much, so I'll say nothing. Trouble is, you've got to take these things. Nobody can do anything. There's a couple of warders here I wouldn't mind having for sons. At my age now, I mean. Hell, I'm getting on. 31 on Saturday. I don't know what's happened to the years since I saw you last. Yes, I said years. I get mad about it sometimes. I wish I could think somebody pinched all that time so I could do him over. When I get out of this place in a few days, I don't know what I'll do. I might make Outback again. Boxing on with a copper put me here, but I'll be right. You should feel my muscles. Your old pal, Fascinatin'. Barbie wrote back straight away, brief and to the point. You beat around the bush too much. Do you need me? Why don't you say, do you? If he needed her, she was there. If you were needed, you give. She told herself. Everybody is needed by somebody for something. The great trouble is you don't know why or where Mostly. Not that she needed him, she told herself. She didn't need anybody. He didn't want to get the idea she was chasing him. She went in every day. He sent a telegram. Her hands shook as she opened it. I need you, all right. She sent a telegram back. If you need me, you come to me here. Tell me when. Another telegram, a day later, told her he would be on Thursday's express, pulling in at daybreak at 11 o'clock in the morning. She'd know him by his long white beard, he said. Barbie started getting herself ready. Hours early, she put on the frock Joe had bought her to be married in. I don't fit it as well, she thought. I'm still a bit thin in the waist, but I don't think he'll notice. Just the same, she put a belt on the dress. She had no stockings, and her shoes were worn at the heels. They worried her, but it couldn't be helped. Thank heavens, though, I don't look as dreadful as I did a few months ago, she thought. Driving into town in the buggy, she was excited, yet troubled by a vague premonitory feeling. I hope I don't look too shabby, she worried. I hope I'm what he expects to see. He might be disappointed and cold and turn away. It's funny, she thought. I haven't had any mother except Australia, and I see it all now. Griefs come, and with some they get a run on, as they did with me, and as they might again. Then they stop, and there's peace. The lean and the full years, they balance up. The trouble is on your shoulders one week, and it's gone the next. You go on. You're like a drifter from where you're born till when you die. You pick up your swag roll and you carry it, and it's light and heavy by turns, and then you put it down for the last time, and that's the end. She was there at 10 to 11, standing on the platform. The brown station building dozed in the sun. Only a Morse clicker tapped in the silence that enfolded it. Barbie trembled with tension, looking along the tracks that shone like silver spoons into the haze of the heat. They're going to get the train, she thought, and she thought of Mary Moxie going home to a son in Broken Hill. I'm not going into a home. I've seen pictures of people in a home, and I saw a picture of an old ship at the bottom of the sea with fishes swimming in and out of the portholes. Where was the difference? Living things in a house of the dead. If I can grow old like Mary Moxie and have a son called Jim to go home to, I won't mind, but no home for me. And when I go, I want to go quick, not linger. Quick as anything. She saw the engine swimming through the heat. She heard the vibration in the rails below her. She held her hands tightly together. I hope everything's going to be all right, she kept saying with her lips. She almost forgot something. She pinched her cheeks to make them glow in color, though she had no need to do so. The engine clanked past her. She looked at the sweeping windows of the carriages. They stopped. Her breath hurried. Her eyes quested. One man got off, short and portly, and staggered with 2 heavy bags to a waiting car. The station master waved. Brakes hissed. Barbie watched the train going into the distance. The heat, haze, swallowed it up. She turned and walked slowly down the platform, stunned with disappointment and disconsolate. Hey, who's the best bloke you know, and why am I? She spun around, open-mouthed, seeing him all in an instant. Tall, thick, a rock, the same as ever. Came on the goods early. Been watching you, just a joke. Oh, you are a devil to do that, she cried. He held her, crushing her to him, and he said, They reckon you always get what you want if you wait long enough. He said no more. His eyes glinted like bits of mica. And her body was against his, hard, embracing him, and she was sobbing and thinking with intensity, I want him with me, I want to keep him till I die. God, let me keep him, and let me die quick, with my blood hot, keep going till I drop, like Joe, my father, fall down on the earth sudden and die.